Just spending some time looking up at the sky. See a few clouds. Looks like it's quite a few jets that are leaving their trails. And in the distance, I see birds, then another plane flying. And it caused me to think a little bit. We have a lot of people, interesting too, that quite a few people feel as though the earth is flat. Still, I feel that the moon landing, because it hasn't happened in several decades, that it was staged in a Hollywood stunt room. I feel that all the pictures of Earth as a globe, or as round, or a sphere, or just made up things by NASA, which is a shadowy organization that tends to keep us in the dark about things. And people use the Bible actually to feel that the earth is flat. And it's interesting because it talks about the four corners of the earth, but if you look at their model, there are no corners to it. It's a round disc surrounded by an ice wall, Antarctica. And there are people that are stationed at the ice wall to keep people from coming. I mean, you really can't make this up. But I guess you can, because they did. My answer to that is actually pretty simple, and I'm looking at the sky too. So if my eyes are going up, it's because I'm truly trying to really fathom the wonder of God, you know. And I can see where people begin to think, well, it's a big dome. And I guess when people during early times looked at the sky, they thought it was a dome because that's what it seemed like. The dome came down in a particular area, and where you are is at its highest point. Of course, every time we move upon this earth, the dome seems to be the same. That's another thing. If this is a dome, then wouldn't the dome be in a smaller place, like towards the tip of South America, at the Cape of Good Hope in Africa, in Australia even? Wouldn't the dome be a little bit less high and it seem a little less symmetrical? These are the things that you would think about as people try to explain things, and they use the Bible to try to try to give credence to their theory. But I think what's happening is that people are afraid of too much knowledge. They're afraid that man would take away God from everything, and that everything would only be as electrical impulses or some other type of thing. The reason why I say this is because essentially I think people would rather believe in a conspiracy than believe that science can actually increase the wonderment that is God. The reason why I say that is really very simply this. I'm going to break this up into two parts. Number one, God doesn't give us any more than what we can actually take. If the Lord had given people like Moses and Joshua and Samuel and all the rest, and taught them, well, the earth is round, and it probably wouldn't have computed in the minds of people. It wouldn't have computed, and it would have been more problems than what it's worth. So God wisely just said, let's wait until man figures it out. I already know, so don't have to tell me. I'm not threatened by it. But let man figure it out. He'll eventually do that. Just my thinking. But it would make sense. Although there are certain things that give you a clue as to how progressive the Bible is. How it talks about how he hung the world on nothing, which lets you know that instead of being born by, because these were things that were thought of by the ancients. They were on turtles, on the back of turtles, in the back of whatever giant things are dealing with the foundations of the earth. But when the Lord himself said that he hung the world on nothing, whether it's a disc or whether it's a globe, that's an amazing thing, that there's actually something else out there, and that the earth is traveling through it on nothing. On nothing. The other thing that kind of gets me, I guess, is why limit God? Why try to limit God because we don't know what's taking place? And maybe that's the key to all of this, and not just about the earth, that we limit God to, well, it can't be. God cannot put this because we don't fathom it. We can't think it. So the earth must be flat. And remember, this is that if people could fly, if God meant for people to fly, they would have made us with wings. Got that too. But we fly every day. Looking at planes. And yes, a few do fall down and crash. But I wonder if birds crash. I think they do. I think there are certain situations that birds essentially fall out of the sky. But the idea here is that if God is infinite, then why can't where he dwells be infinite? At least to us. It just makes God much more of a wonder and a power, much more amazing that he's past this dome that some people call the firmament or the sky, that he's past the twinkling skies, or the twinkling stars, the twinkling stars, the rings of Saturn, the giant of Jupiter, the sun blazing 93 million miles away. Would that be belittling God if the universe was actually as big as we feel it is now? Or would it be just extending his power And I always thought the latter, that science does not belittle God, at least not taken correctly, but it makes more to wonder and to stand in awe of what God is and of what he has done. The fact that he creates atoms with such power that to either smash them together or loose them with a little bit of material can cause such a cataclysmic event like a nuclear explosion. I want us to really think about that, saints, that instead of thinking of science as putting God in his place, it's science that allows us to see what place God represents. And even science has to stop at some place and wonder what goes beyond them. Because science is not infinite. Science doesn't know how to record infinity. Let's take a black hole, for instance. One of the most esoteric, amazing structures that we can even think of observing, that all of the gravity of a particular spot or star, massive star, is in one little single thing called a singularity. Why would God create something so huge and then collapse it to such a small point that the gravity becomes so crazy that any light, even light that goes beyond a certain point, can never come back? That light cannot even escape it. And if we really think of God, how could he have created something? And then, if it is what is called a supermassive black hole in the middle of our own galaxy, then he creates something like that to be able to form a galaxy and have it rotate upon itself, so that it's not just a random thing, but it's order. It's order in the universe. Yeah, so when we look at things like this, look at the sky, look at nature, look at what God has made, look at what God has done, then we can't capsule, or in trying to defend God, we can't try to force him into a particular position, that fearing that if we go past that, then we lose all concept of God. No. It only makes God so much more amazing, so much more of a wonder, when we really think of the power that this world shows. And then, to wrap it all up, if God can make sure all this is created and it all flows through some type of equation that man has finally discovered, but God has already put there. Remember, God didn't need to find out equations to figure out how planets move, how bodies move, how we move. It was already in his hand. He already knew. He already knew. We had to figure it out. And why? Because this supports what God said at the creation. He made man in his image, which means his knowledge will continue to grow and grow and grow. Even said it in Genesis when they would build the Tower of Babel, that nothing would be impossible for them, or they wouldn't think that way. Last thing, if the Lord therefore is boundless in his presence, if he is boundless in his power, if he is boundless in his wisdom, then why can't God create himself a body, put all of his quality or qualitative powers in that body, but still retain the quantitative elements of who he is? And so therefore, he's in heaven while walking upon the earth. It is not for us to figure out everything, because we can't even figure out science. And for the one who created science, the things that we put limitations on God, we should never do that. Because it's only what we can understand, not what God can do. That's our limit. Just thinking about these things. But hopefully it puts a better appreciation of the majesty of God. And most of all, what he did for you and I. God bless you. Have a wonderful, blessed day.